Like about
I'm a boss. I'm a leader.
You know who the boss is.
The buck stops here.
Mr. Talk 718.
Okay, I'm the big kahuna here. Do you have a problem with that?
I'm the big kahuna.
Yo, what's good, everybody? How y'all doing out there tonight? It's your man, Mr. Talk 718 with Talk Life Media, and I want to talk about a sensitive topic that has been making headlines in recent years: the phenomenon of African Americans rejecting their racial identities and wanting to be other races. This topic is not only controversial, but it's also has significant psychological implications for those affected. So let's dive into the discussion with the support of some sources and professional information. The history of racial identity. Before we dive into the psychological behind wanting to be other races, it's important to understand the history of racial identity. Throughout history, people of color have been subjected to systematic racism, discrimination, and a long history of oppression. The impact of these experiences has created a cultural identity that is deeply rooted in the experience of African Americans. And this is a source. This source is from the Racial Identity Development, a theoretical framework by Maria P. Root. Colorism and internalization of racism, or colorism and internalized racism. In addition to systematic racism, colorism or discrimination based on skin color within the same racial group is also a factor that contributes to the internalized racism and rejection of one's racial identity. Studies have shown that African Americans with darker skin are subjected to more discrimination and negative stereotypes, leading to lower self-esteem and greater likelihood of wanting to distance themselves from their racial identities. And this is a source. This source is from the Impact of Colorism in African American Mental Health by Kimberly, Peterson, and Rachelle M. Wilson. Let's delve in a little bit about the colorism. So I did a video a year ago about the colorism in African American groups, right? And I told a little story about how, me and my brother, my brother's light skin, I'm dark skin, and how people liked him, but we look alike. And there's been times when my brother say, bro, we look just alike. Yo, go get shorty, go get But then she'll come back and she'll be like, oh, well, your brother, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a real thing out there where people look at you because of your skin tone, and they'll look at you and they'll put their nose down towards you, as opposed to saying, you're a beautiful person, or you have nice features, et cetera, et cetera. They will turn their nose down on you and make you feel like you're not worth it, but you are worth it. So if anyone out there ever tell you anything about you being dark skinned, listen, don't worry about it. These are people who are lost. They're sheep. They're lost sheep. Remember that. The psychological implications. Studies have shown that internalized racism, self-hatred, and a lack of self-esteem can all contribute to a rejection of one's racial identity. This can result in a person wanting to distance themselves from their own race and seeking to identify with a different racial group. The Psychology of Internalized Racism by Darnell L. Smith and Kevin Cokley. Additionally, media representation and cultural norms can also play a role in perpetuating negative stereotypes about African Americans, leading some individuals to internalize these beliefs and reject their own racial identity. And this is a source. The source is The Impact of Media Representation on the Psychological Well-Being of People of Color by David J. Leonard and Dana Ain Davis. This here, I can talk about it. If you are born in the 70s or early 80s, you would see back in the days, the people who represented Black people in the news were usually people of a lighter shade brown, right? We're all the same, but they would look at someone like me and be like, no. But they would look at someone who looked like, let's say, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, right? They will look at him and say, yes, even though he identifies himself as a Black man, they will look at him and say that he fits the profile better. But Is there really a profile when you're educated and you're able to speak, and you're able to get the story out the same way? It's crazy. But this is what they do to us. This is what they have been doing to us. And we have been doing it to ourselves as well. Coping with rejection of racial identity. We have to cope with the rejection of racial identity. It is important to acknowledge that wanting to be another race is a complex psychological issue that requires professional help. Get a therapist. Therapy can help individuals understand and confront the root cause of their rejection of their racial identity. There was a movie. It was about a woman who she was like I want to say a housekeeper, right? And her daughter was a very fair skinned, beautiful black woman, but she can pass, right? She passed for a white woman, right? And she told her mom, I'm just going to give to the end part. She told her mom, she said, if you see me walking down the street, just pass on by and do not acknowledge me. For me, that's like a slap in the face. I birthed you and you don't even want to be acknowledged by me just because I'm dark skinned and you look like you can pass. This has been going on for years, for decades. Black people, once we became free men, we were wanting to be more than who we are. We wanted to be less than who we are, if you really think about it, because you have to be proud of who you are. Be a proud individual. Be proud of who you are, of your skin color, of your nationality, of your hair, of everything. We have to be proud, but we don't want to be proud. Hence, this is why we do perms and eyelashes and all the other nonsensical things that we do to look beautified, to look like other people. But we are who we are. We're brown, black, African descendants in America. The source of coping with rejection comes from the benefit of therapy for people struggling with racial identity issues by American Psychological Institute or Association. Furthermore, it's important for African Americans to connect with their cultural roots and engage in activities and communities that celebrate their heritage. This can help build a strong sense of self and pride in one's racial identity. That source is the importance of connecting with cultural heritage for people of color by National Museum of African American History and Culture. My conclusion: the phenomenon of African Americans wanting to be other races is a complex issue with deep psychological roots. Colorism, internalized racism, and media representation all plays a role in contributing to this phenomenon. It is important for individuals to seek professional help and to connect with their cultural heritage, to build a strong sense of self, pride, and their racial identity. If you guys need any of these sources, I will be leaving them in the bottom of my YouTube or my Instagram. You guys, thank you for listening. Just remember, love yourself. If you don't know who you are, do the research. It doesn't take thousands of dollars. It doesn't take hiring someone that's a professional in genealogy or DNA. It takes nothing. You just go get you a cheap DNA test, right? Even if it's 23andMe, at least it will lead you to the right path, right? It'll start you somewhere, right? Genealogy is good. Find out who your grandparents' were. And then you'll be able to know who you are. But if you are a person that look like me, you are a black person. And it doesn't matter if you feel you're something else. The people who identify you in this world will place you in a bubble, and that's what you are, period. So if you were arrested by the police, they would call you a black person. If you were stopped, if you were signing up for an application for a job, they'll look at you and they'll identify you as black, regardless to what you identify yourself as. Anyway, it's your man, Mr. Talk 718.
Being top dog is what it's all about.
The boss of all bosses.
Oh my God, there's so many levels to this.
Mr. Talk 718.
Boss of the boss of the boss that I'd be working for.